My name is William. I'm 76 years old, and I never learned what she meant by goodbye. She said it on a Tuesday morning in June. We were standing in the driveway. The sun was already hot, even though it was barely 9 o'clock.
She had her suitcase in one hand, her purse in the other. "Goodbye, William," she said, and I said, "See you Sunday." That was 32 years ago.
Her name was Helen. We met in 1965. I was working at a printing company in Albany. She came in one afternoon with a stack of wedding invitations that needed to be redone. The calligrapher had misspelled the groom's name. She laughed about it, said it was probably a sign. I asked if she was the bride. She said no, just the sister. We got married 2 years later. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was steady, comfortable. Helen was a teacher, 3rd grade. She had this way of talking to children that made them feel important, like what they had to say mattered. I wish I'd paid more attention to how she did that. We bought a house in 1970, small, 2 bedrooms, a backyard with a cherry tree that never produced much fruit. Helen wanted children. We tried for a few years. It didn't happen. The doctors said it was probably me, low count, poor motility, terms I didn't really understand, but nodded along to anyway. Helen said it was okay, that we'd be fine, just the 2 of us. I believed her. She threw herself into teaching after that. She'd come home with stories about her students, about the little boy who'd finally learned to read, about the girl who'd drawn her a picture of a rainbow. I'd listen while reading the paper, half there. She stopped telling me those stories after a while. I worked a lot in those years. The printing company promoted me to manager, then regional director. The money was good. The hours were long. Helen would have dinner waiting when I got home. We'd eat, watch television, go to bed. On weekends, she'd work in the garden. I'd work on the house, fix things, paint, organize the garage. We had a routine. I thought that meant we were fine. In 1985, her mother got sick. Cancer, pancreatic. Helen's father had died years earlier. She was an only child, so it fell to her to manage everything. She'd drive down to Syracuse every weekend, sometimes during the week, too. I went with her a few times, sat in the hospital room while Helen held her mother's hand, talked to her, read to her. I didn't know what to do, so I'd excuse myself, go get coffee, sit in the cafeteria. Helen never asked me to stay. Her mother passed away in March of 1986. Helen took it hard. She'd cry at strange times, in the middle of making dinner, while folding laundry, sitting in the car. I didn't know how to help. I'd ask if she was okay. She'd say yes. I'd nod and go back to whatever I was doing. I thought giving her space was the right thing. That summer, she started talking about taking a trip. Just her, by herself. She wanted to visit her aunt in Oregon, the one she hadn't seen since she was a girl. I didn't understand why she wanted to go alone. "We could both go," I said. "I need to do this by myself," she said. I didn't ask why. She left on a Tuesday in June. I drove her to the airport, helped her with her bag. We stood at the curb. "How long will you be gone?" I asked. "A week, maybe 2. "You're not sure?" "I'll call when I know." I looked at her. She seemed different somehow, lighter, like she'd already left, even though she was still standing there. "Goodbye, William," she said. Not, "See you soon," not, "I'll miss you," just, "Goodbye." "See you Sunday," I said. She didn't correct me.
She picked up her suitcase, walked through the sliding doors. I stood there for a moment, then I got back in the car and drove home. She called that first week, said she had arrived safely, that her aunt was doing well, that Oregon was beautiful. "When are you coming back?" I asked. "I'm not sure yet. You said a week, maybe 2. I know, I just need a little more time." I didn't understand, but I said okay. The second week she called again. Her voice sounded different, calmer, steadier. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." "About what?" "About us, about my life." "What about it?" There was a long pause. "I don't think I'm coming back, William." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. "I'm not angry," she said. "I'm not blaming you. I can't keep living the way we've been living." "What does that mean?" "It means I need something different, something more." "More than what?" Another pause. "More than silence." I wanted to argue, to tell her she was being dramatic, that we were fine, that every marriage had its quiet moments, but I didn't, because somewhere deep down I knew she was right. "Is there someone else?" I asked. "No, this isn't about that." "Then what is it about?" "It's about me feeling like I'm disappearing, like I've been disappearing for years, and you haven't noticed." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. "I'm sorry, William, I really am." And then she hung up.
I waited for her to change her mind, to call back and say she'd made a mistake, that she was coming home. But she didn't. A few weeks later, I got a letter from a lawyer. Divorce papers. No contest. She wasn't asking for much, just half of what we'd saved, the car she'd been driving, her personal things. I signed 'em. She came back once to get her belongings. I wasn't there. I made sure of that. She left the house key on the kitchen counter. I didn't hear from her after that. No calls, no letters. It was like she'd just vanished. For a long time I told myself she'd overreacted, that she'd been grieving her mother and hadn't been thinking clearly, that it wasn't really about us, about me. But over the years I started to see it differently. I'd remember the way she used to tell me about her students, how her face would light up, and how I'd barely looked up from the paper. I'd remember the weekends she spent at the hospital with her mother, and how I'd found excuses to leave the room. I'd remember all the times she'd start to say something and then stop, the way she'd look at me, waiting, and how I'd just nod and turn back to the TV. I thought I was being a good husband. I worked, I provided, I fixed things around the house, but I never asked her what she needed. I never asked her how she felt. I never asked her anything, really. And when she finally tried to tell me, when she said she was disappearing, I didn't fight for her. I didn't ask her to stay. I just let her go. I never remarried. A few people tried to set me up over the years, said I was still young, that I shouldn't be alone. But I couldn't. It didn't feel right. I retired in 1998, sold a house in 2005, moved into a smaller place. I kept busy, volunteered at the library, joined a woodworking group, saw my nieces and nephews on holidays. It was fine, but it was quiet. I thought about Helen sometimes, wondered where she was, if she was happy, if she ever thought about me. Last year I got a letter from her aunt in Oregon. Helen had passed away, peacefully in her sleep. The aunt thought I should know. There was a photograph in the envelope. Helen, older, gray hair, smile lines around her eyes. She was standing in a garden surrounded by flowers. She looked content. On the back, in Helen's handwriting, it said, Oregon, 2019. That was it. I stared at that photograph for a long time, trying to reconcile the woman I'd known with the woman in the picture. She looked so different, so alive. And I realized something. She hadn't left me because she stopped loving me. She left because she needed to start loving herself, to find out who she was when she wasn't disappearing. When she said goodbye that morning in the driveway, she wasn't just leaving for a trip. She was leaving for good. And she was trying to tell me that. But I didn't hear it. I heard "See you Sunday," because that's all I was listening for. I'm 76 years old, and I never learned what she meant by goodbye, not until it was too late. I don't know if things would have been different if I'd asked her to stay, if I'd told her I understood, that I'd try harder. Maybe she still would have left. Maybe she needed to. But I wish I'd at least tried. I wish I'd heard what she was really saying. I wish I'd seen her before she disappeared completely. I keep that photograph on my desk now. Helen in her garden, smiling. It reminds me that sometimes goodbye doesn't mean see you later. Sometimes it means I can't stay here anymore. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let someone go, even when you don't want to, even when you don't understand. If you're still here, thank you for listening. I don't know why I needed to say this out loud. Maybe because I'm running out of time to say it. Maybe because someone else needs to hear it. If there's someone in your life who's trying to tell you something, listen. Really listen. Not to what you want to hear, but to what they're actually saying. I didn't, and I've spent 32 years wishing I had.